Hey guys, just thought I'd pop on here and give you my thoughts while I work. Kind of wanted to touch on dating in the current scene that we find ourselves in. Currently I'm 34. A pretty prime age to date in terms of SMV, which is just a term that talks about a person's value in the dating scene, how valuable you are. You know, there's different metrics that make up the equation. And I've spent the last good 5-6 years kind of focusing on myself, building my physique, you know, focusing on the things that I care about. I like to study a lot. I like to study philosophy, especially psychology, specifically Jungian analytical psychology, and it's given me a good return on my investment. It allows me to assess and analyze people, basically predict people's behavior, which is a very good skill set to have nowadays. But yeah, in terms of skill set I've been working on, my physique, like I said, my finances, just building up all the different things that makes a person valuable. And I look around and I kind of feel like we're living in a dystopian nightmare, some type of strange Twilight Zone episode where almost all the women are deluded, entitled, kind of nasty, negative. It's kind of sad, because we all have our issues. There's stuff that men do wrong, I guess, when you try to categorize it in terms of gender. So I'm not blaming just females just for the sake of them having ovaries, but from a male's perspective in the context of dating, it's just a little frustrating, I'd say. And a lot of guys that I've listened to just in my personal life, especially on YouTube, different social media outlets, the consensus is pretty aligned that we're just kind of done. Most women don't provide enough value for us to really invest in said women. And a lot of guys kind of fall into a hopelessness, but it's not healthy. Because it's been like this for a while. And I'd say 5-6 years ago, I really saw it, and I was like, I have a couple options. I can just cash in my chips and find the best woman that I can get and just settle with that. Or I could do the incel approach and just kind of tap out of life and just do my own thing, or the path that I chose, which was to work on my value and build my value to such an undeniable degree that I would have an abundance of options in terms of women. And that's kind of where I find myself, where I guess I'm peaking in terms of my value on the dating scene. At least it's the highest it's ever been. It might go higher. But I don't know if it's just the area that I live in. It's definitely a combination of things, but the place that I live is very blue collar, very working class, and there's not a whole lot of people between the ages of, that I'm looking for, between 20 to 29. There's a lot of younger people still in school, and there's a lot of older people, middle-aged people, a lot of minorities, which is fine, but I definitely like a good Caucasian woman, a voluptuous woman. But, I go out, I put myself in situations where I meet the opposite gender, and I met with a lot of blue, purple, red, a lot of colorful hair, which seems to indicate a certain personality trait based off of pattern recognition that is not very desirable for a lot of men. A lot of tattoos, 1,000 face piercings. But you know what? If it was just aesthetic, it wouldn't be an issue. But a lot of those times, those indicate certain personality traits that aren't very desirable in a woman. Just a lot of entitlement. So I try to find places that I can go to find women with higher value. They're not as mentally and psychologically damaged, not so jaded. And I've been going to church for the past couple weeks to put myself in a position to possibly find a woman with higher value. During the 4th of July, I went to an event where I live downtown, and I talked to some people that are part of this church, and I like to debate. I like to study a lot of subjects, and one of them is religion, and I like to study different religions. So I found an opportunity to kind of debate. I enjoy doing that. It's an outlet that I can channel my competitiveness, which for some reason our society thinks being competitive is somehow bad as a man, but it's what has built this society, and it's a necessity for the world to run. But anyway, so there was this pastor, and started talking to him about the Holy Trinity and different aspects of it that didn't really make sense, and just a debate. I enjoy that. But I noticed there was this young lady off to my side, and I kind of made note of it. She was in the age bracket that I'm looking for, and just kind of made a mental note. But after I was done talking to the pastor and he invited me to the church, I went to a food truck to get some food, and next thing you know, the woman that I was talking about teleported behind me. So, to me, I kind of took that as an indication of interest. Seemed like she's putting herself in my way for me to talk to her. So I talked to her, and she said, hey, she come by down to the church. I said, okay. And so I've gone. I mean, apparently they do service Sunday and Wednesdays. I work Wednesdays, so I go Sunday, and the past couple Sundays she hasn't been there, which is fine. I met some of the younger guys, and we had some we did some arm wrestling at the end of the service, which was fun. It was like 98 degrees, so we were dripping sweat, testosterone blazing, and just having a good time. So it was, I definitely think putting myself in situations like that is good. I can tell those people are just on a different frequency, a different wavelength than the majority of the public. Just seems like most people are just kind of diseased. They just have a very morbid sense of reality, and just by being in their presence feels like it's, what's the word? It's toxic, corrosive. That's the word. It's like corrosive. It starts to eat at your soul just being around it. But anyways, I put, like, just the other night, I thought, hey, I'd go downtown. I don't like to go to bars. I don't drink. But, just to put myself in the situation and just kind of get a sense of what it's like on the scene. I don't really go to bars, like I said. And, it's very depressing. I'm met with, I feel like where I'm at in terms of my value, I get a lot of indications of interest, IOIs they call it in the pickup world. And obviously, I get heavier set women, or maybe women that aren't the most traditionally good looking. They obviously will put themselves in my way, try to get my attention. But a lot of the good looking women, a lot of them have this like mental condition, I almost call it, where it's almost like they want you, they desire you, but they're so emotionally blocked off and damaged that they can't be vulnerable. So they have a hard time trying to indicate interest without... Sorry about that.